As part of my discussions with you, regarding various phases of SDLC, software development lifecycle, I've explained, there is a program is conceived, then a plan is made, then there's a planning phase, then there is a um, business requirements gathering phase, then there's a function requirement gathering phase, then we do gap analysis, then we do design, then we do development, then there is functional testing, performance testing phase, then there's a UAT. Before that there could be system testing, stress testing, there are 100 type of tests. After UAT there could be training, then after training there could be development, production implementation, production rollout. Then there's production handholding for 1 month, then there is production support. Okay? So these are different phases of software development lifecycle. Software development lifecycle is kind of a generic word for making what it takes to make a software. All these like different phases that I said, all these basically have been theorized by all these various software firms and all that stuff. One of the first model that was conceived long time back is called as waterfall model. It's a very famous model. It simply means after requirement design will come, after design implementation will come, after implementation verification, that is testing will come, then maintenance will come. So this is the simple thing that we talk. We just put plan on top of it. We just have the same phases. We bifurcate requirements into 2 pieces, right? So these are the simple. The waterfall model is different from what I explained you is in that it is a strictly sequential model. If you once leave the requirement phase, you cannot go back. You have to get into design. Okay. Then after you are done with the design, you have to get into implementation. You cannot go back. So you do the entire requirements first, then you do the entire design first, then you do the entire implementation. You cannot do two. You cannot be doing two. You cannot be in 2 phases together, right? So this is the waterfall model. Then there is RUP model. Okay. They say there is an inception, elaboration, construction, transition, production, and retirement phase. Inception means same thing. It is conceived, planning, and scoping. Elaboration means elaborate, detailing. That means gathering requirements, business requirements, as well as function requirements, and making design. Construction means actually developing the system. Transition means testing and UAT and deploying the system. They just call it by the same different names. One of the important differences between RUP and SDLC and waterfall is that waterfall is sequential, this is iterative. You do inception, you can come back to inception. You do elaboration, you come back to elaboration. You can do construction, you can come back to elaboration, right? And it also understands that different like there are different BAs or different areas being developed. One BA might have done his duty, and then he might just be working with the developers, where the other BA might be working on development at that particular time. The point is, it recognizes the fact that things are not sequential, especially in a complex software. There are different parts of a software which can be following their own cycle. And also once it gets into design, it can go back to planning again. And also it understands one very interesting aspect, that a big software can be developed in phases. In first phase, you can, in a 6 months first phase, you can do only certain things. Then in second phase, you will do roll out certain other things. Then you can, so it basically also recognizes that aspect. Waterfall means if you have a 5-year plan, in the first 1 year you only do requirement. You will not roll out anything. That strictly sequential nature of waterfall makes it completely useless. I pretty much say this is just a way for you to understand what's more to come. It has no validity, no use, no nothing. It's the stupidest thing in the world, actually, to be used. I don't know why they have this strictly sequential, because nothing happens strictly sequential. But then there is other models, RUP, Agile. I'm going to write some of those here. Okay. RUP, Rational Unified Process, Agile, this is just Agile, I don't know what the full form is. EUP, Enterprise Unified Process, RAD, Rapid Application Development, Phased Development. Okay, so now question is, what's RUP? We come back just to understand some of the other features. It simply recognizes way of developing the software. First of all, you can come back to the previous phase, then you can partition your development and implementation into different pieces. You can do certain pieces at once, or they could be like one they could be it is possible that one particular piece is in certain phase and the other piece is in certain other phase. Two pieces have not even started, they'll start after everything is finished for those three pieces. This is also possible. So RUP is a very flexible thing, and this is the most used what you call it, methodology. This is called a methodology of software. What is methodology? Methodology means method of doing something. Method of doing. EUP says at any given point of time, let's say at certain point of time, everything is going on. It says during inception phase also everything is going on. Certain softwares are getting tested, certain aspects of a software, certain parts of the software are getting in the design phase, certain aspects are in testing phase, certain softwares are in analysis phase. This is what EUP is, and that's true. For example, one of these companies like Google has like 1,000 systems. They don't want to develop everything in one go. Requirement gathering, that's not the way it works. So this is EUP is basically just theorizing RUP a little further. It's trying to say at any given point of time, not just certain parts of the same software, actually different softwares or certain parts, anything, they are in different phases. That's right. That is the way it works. Okay. So now RUP, you need to understand. Remember these words: inception, elaboration, construction, transition, production, retirement. Okay. Going to work. Okay, that's good. That's a very good question. I said that you at any given point of time you are doing inception, then you go to elaboration, you could go back to inception. Actually, it's not that you go like just by a whim, which is what your question is, I guess. It's like a whim, or whether we think and whether we go. It's actually we think a lot, but there are methods. There are things that exist. For example, there is a change request method. So then, like for example, we are in UAD, but then again we were back in development. So, but it doesn't mean that it was a good decision for us. Project management team, everybody was involved, and so many people got involved, and then we all decided that okay, this is a good idea, and let's go back and do some more testing and development. Okay, so it's an iteration. So idea is not that we are doing construction, then we go back to planning all of a sudden. Idea is really we basically they don't think just we should do it just like that. But basically, if something is lacking in the inception phase, RUP has the flexibility to let you go back, and you obviously take care of all those things, so it doesn't occur that much. At most, it goes back to previous phase, and only certain parts, not everything. And then there are methods also. It's not that you just simply go. Then there are methods, like there are some formal methods like change request management. For example, let's say at any given point of time, if the elaboration phase results are changed, like requirements are changing, requirements change, then we have this change request mechanism. So it has to get approved by different people, like usually by the project manager, some lead BA, some people out there in the stakeholders also, because it affects the cost. And then it goes back to that, only that thing, not the entire thing. So it's just conceptualizing what we all understand needs to be done. Like during housing also, same as SDLC is involved, trust me. The only thing is we don't conceptualize that way. RUP is a methodology for SDLC. SDLC is kind of the goal. Software development life cycle is the life cycle, but there are different ways of making it, right? So UP, they saw that it's not just one software being developed in the company. There are thousands of softwares being developed. So they thought, okay, we need to understand how these are working. Basically, at any given point of time, different softwares are in different phases, and that's true. One team is doing just whatever they are doing, so other teams they don't even know what they're doing. So they're all in different phases. And it also recognizes certain other disciplines like change management, configuration change management. Change management is what I was talking about, change request management, right? That was change management. Then environment and operational support. So there's so many things that it recognizes. So EUP is not important. RUP is what you need to remember. This RUP, and it's basically an iterative approach. You remember that part. It's an iterative approach. RUP is most commonly used. It's used a lot. But if you see, they are using EUP as well. Those different softwares are getting done. So RUP is one that is really used. Okay. Now in civil implementation, there is another methodology which is used called as eroadmap. This is civil proprietary, civil recommended methodology. Okay, I think that's one of your questions. Okay, there are different phases in eroadmap. One is plan, other one is define. The same wine in a different bottle. Okay, same wine in a different bottle. The phases are called plan, define, discover, prototype. Define, discover is corresponding to requirement gathering and functional requirement gathering. Prototype is design. Development, they call it as I'm forgetting the name. Give me 1 second. These are the different phases: plan, define, discover, design, configure, validate, deploy. Same way. एक मिनट होल्ड कीजिए. So these are different phases in the what you call it, CBL roadmap. Planning is really planning. Define is scoping. Discover is requirements gathering. Design is design. They call it define as scoping also. That is business requirements. Discover is gathering requirements as well as blah blah blah, and doing gap analysis is part of discover. Design is functional design. Configure is development. Validate is testing and UAT. Deploy is production rollout. Sustain is maintenance. Same wine in a different model. Okay. There are, if you have to ask a purist, a person who is doing PhD in methodologies, there are people who are doing that, right? Then they will be having subtle differences between all this. Okay. All this, the message really is lost when you go in the real world. They are doing important stuff. They're doing whatever is important and whatever is needed and whatever is required. They are not going by methodologies, but they name their deliverables with this thing. You see, now one of all these system integrated companies, like big companies like where you were working, who are vendors, who are big vendors, they tend to follow these things quite well, like quite closely. Define the document, discover document, design document. That's how they name their stuff. They do all that. Okay.